Hello and welcome to Take Control of Your Career. Today we are joined by Carrie Kerpen. She is an entrepreneur and a social media maven. She is co-founder of the company Likeable Media. She is the host of All the Social Ladies podcast and author of the best-selling book, Work It, Secrets for Success from the Boldest Women in Business. Today we are going to be having some fun together. Welcome, Carrie.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I'm so excited to be here.
Great. Well, let's get to know you first, Carrie. You founded Likeable with your husband, Dave Kerpen, and you just sold the company this year. So first of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's been a long, fabulous ride, and it's fantastic.
Great. So tell us about the evolution of that company and what's next for you, and just so we can get to know you, your passions around women in business in particular.
Okay. So let's see. I started the business in 2007 with my husband. It was actually a business that was founded on our wedding day. My husband wanted a larger than life event for his wedding. And when I tell you that, Lauren, I don't mean just like he wanted his friends from high school. I mean, like if he were on this podcast, he would literally be like, Lauren, you got to watch me get married to Carrie. I mean, he wanted something huge. And we knew, we lived in New York. There was nowhere that would hold it or certainly afford it. And so we had to get creative. We pitched a minor league baseball stadium and we said, hey, we're going to buy out your sponsorship for the night and resell in sponsors to be wedding themed. We will get married on the field after the game itself. So picture how Pepsi tosses t-shirts into the audience at games?
Yeah, absolutely.
Picture 1-800-Flowers tossing bridal bouquets. It'll be campy and fun. And we'll get married on the field after, and we'll have a party in the back. It'll be great. So they said, you're crazy, but try it. We raised $100,000 in sponsorships. We raised $25,000 for the MS Society, which is a charity that's near and dear to our heart. And we got massive amounts of press, tons of buzz. So everywhere, national and international press, it was all over the place. And after the event, all of the sponsors came to us and they were like, you know what? We would bet on you guys.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we started the business totally by accident. And so we started a word of mouth company because we thought people would bet on us. We could create buzzworthy events. Wouldn't that be great? And we did. And then in 2007, Facebook opened beyond the college market. We were like, holy cannoli, social media is going to be the fastest form of word of mouth. We've got to lean in. And so we did. And then my path to women was really that Dave and I ran the business for many years. He was the face of the business. I was the operator. I kept clients happy. I kept staff happy. I did everything. And Dave was a very public facing figure. He wrote a New York Times bestselling book called Likeable Social Media. It put us on the map. And he was really out there. And then he went on to do other things. We launched another company. We did a bunch of stuff and I became the CEO. And when I was there as CEO, this was 2013, and social media was very different. It was much more crowded, right? In 2007, there were no social media agencies. In 2013, everyone, your cousin, your intern, everybody did social media. So it was a much more crowded marketplace. And every thought leader in the space was very loud, very extroverted, and male. And I was sitting there like, oh my goodness, I am in big trouble here because I'm not.
Or there's an opportunity to stand out.
There's an opportunity. Exactly right. And so what I decided to do then was launch a podcast called All the Social Ladies. And I wanted to build a network of women who worked in social media and tell their stories, because all of these men that were thought leaders, they have no problem walking or tweeting all day, sharing their stories. But a lot of these women are really hesitant to share their successes on social. And so I thought, why not start a podcast? That helped me build and really not only build my network, but ultimately double the business, because when women work together, we are so much more powerful.
Yep.
And then from there, it really became a passion point for me. And so I wrote a book called Work It, Secrets for Success from the Boldest Women in Business, where I interviewed tons of incredible women. And then ultimately, I decided that was such a strong passion point for me that I was really ready to help Likeable grow beyond what I had taken it to on my own. And so I joined 10 Pearls, which is a technology services company that helps companies digitally transform. They build all kinds of software and help you conceptualize all of that. And now I am helping to run Likeable and join 10 Pearls and continuing my passion around women.
Awesome. Well, so many things there that we can dig into in this conversation. So where I want to start with first is some of the things that you write about in your book, which is such a great read and just incredible. Some of the women that you had contribute to that. So for example, Sheryl Sandberg and you had Meredith Vieira write a blurb for it. So you have some really amazing women on your team for this. And you tell people in the book to stand out with social media. And since social media is your gig, you're probably one of the best people to tell us how to do that. So what does standing out with social media look like to you? And how can the average person do that in their career?
So I have a really good tip for this. So one of the things that I want everyone to know is that you need to recognize that social media is a highlight reel. And so you are looking at the best of everyone else, right? You're looking through your feed. You see all of these successful powerhouse women. They're all doing amazing things. Everyone's great. Every guy is leading a killer company and everything's perfect. And you are living your entire life, which is the good, the bad, the ugly, the screaming children, the running around, the trying to get it all done. Okay. So you instantly can feel intimidated.
Absolutely.
Yes. So the way to stand out in social media is to find your own highlight reel that is truly and authentically you. And the tip that I have for this is what I call the total stranger test. So the way to do this is step one, find a friend of a friend, somebody that doesn't know you, but you trust enough, like somebody who'll be honest with you. And you say, okay, do me a favor, Google me. Okay. So somebody would Google Carrie Kerpen, look at my social profiles. They would look you up and they would give you 3 words that they would use to describe you. They would write them down. Separately, you are going to think of yourself and say, what are 3 things I want people to know about me? Who do I want to be? You want to see how closely those things match up. Yep. You may want to be seen as like a champion of women and a great business leader and a mom, right? Or whatever it is that you want, like wherever your imagery is. But somebody else may see you and say, well, I see a lot of pictures of the outdoors and maybe you hike a lot or something like that. So really thinking about no presence on social media is a presence. It's saying, I don't want to be found, which is no good because a lot of people who are looking for you are, if they can't find you, they'll look for somebody else.
Right.
The question becomes, who do you want to be? And does it really convey that message? Are you conveying that today? And if not, what tweaks can you do to help convey that?
Yeah, I also like to think when we're talking with women about their personal brand of, who are you at your best? So when you're thinking about that highlight reel for yourself,
yes,
who, when are you happiest? When do you feel like you're performing at your top level? And
right.
So those are areas where you can add to your highlight reel. But I love the comparison of, seeing somebody's highlight reel versus living your real life.
It's just testing it. It's testing it with people who don't know you, because sometimes you may think you give off or come off a certain way and you actually come off a different way. And so really understanding that is so key.
Yeah, absolutely. Great tips. And branding in your career, whether you're looking for a job, whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, whether you're an entrepreneur. I mean, that is really one of the things that I consider like the superpower of your career. So 100%. Can't emphasize that enough. You also write about women and money a lot in your Forbes contributions, in your book. What are some of the main tips that you recommend on that? Because that is highly interrelated with the career conversations as well.
Well, it's very interesting. So Lauren, I will reveal to you my own, top secret, which is my dirty secret, which is that I have tremendous and always have had tremendous financial anxiety. Despite all of the success that I've had, I am always afraid that I could lose everything in an instant, which is so interesting. I came from a very middle class upbringing, but I think because my parents were both government workers, I was taught that risk, they were there for this is a job that I like, and it's a job that I will have a pension. And so that level of stability was something that was ingrained in me early on. And so when I decided to sort of take that risk to become an entrepreneur, and not just become an entrepreneur, become one with my husband. So real risk there. That was very, very scary for me. And so I think that first recognizing that as women, we are often more risk averse, and training ourselves to push past that is key. And one of the ways to do that is to get educated, for sure. I love things like Ellevest, anything that's about investing and for women, like learning to understand stuff. Nicole Lappin's work is brilliant, all around.
Where you can have a safe space.
A safe space. Talk to other women in a safe space. And the other thing, this is my number one money negotiating tip that I learned that I loved from actually somebody who used to work for me, who I interviewed in the book. At the time, she was the marketing director at ClassPass. And she talked about when she was negotiating around comp and salary. And this is something that women instinctively don't do. Okay. So we come in, we're negotiating for salary, and your instinct is to talk. It's to say all of the reasons you're fabulous, everything that you've done, talk because you're nervous and you want to get it out. But the reality is you need to learn how to sit in the quiet. So you say what you're looking for, and then you press what we call the mental mute button. You mentally mute yourself and sit in the silence and let them come to you. It is the single most effective
and hardest.
Yes. So hard. I do it even at Likeable. It's not just with comments. Like if I'm negotiating a contract, I'm now mental mute, and it works. Like you just say, yep, that's how much it's going to cost. It's scary not to talk and be like, but here's what you'll get. And here's, sit with the silence and put it on them.
Great. And so how have you seen that work in life?
So I've seen it work in the negotiations of my own exit. I've seen it work with people at Likeable who I've taught it to, people, that's the thing. It can work against you because of course, all of my wonderful women at Likeable love reading, work it. So they read it and then they come in and they're like, okay, this is what I'd like. And this is why I deserve it. Okay. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's why. Mental mute. And so it's really effective because it puts it on the other person to answer. It's really, really good.
and it's a great thing to practice with as well, so that maybe to start with, you don't necessarily need to start with the big ask, but maybe start with some small asks, get comfortable with it, and then you're ready for the big time.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. You can use the mental mute button in anything. In conversations with your partner. I should use it there more, actually.
Okay, so what you're describing here, I love how you're not only sharing this with the world, but you're using this in your own organization. You're building and developing women on your team around some of these things. And I love how you're just a fan of women supporting women. So for maximizing personal success, you recommend building a FAB PAB. Now, FAB, we all know, and then PAB stands for a personal advisory board. What do you see as the benefits of this?
Okay. So how you have, even when you're growing up, you have you talk to different friends about different things in your life. Like you might have one friend that you go to talk about relationship advice and another friend to go to talk about something else. I believe that you need an advisory board that can help you get to the next level with different things. I mean, there's somebody who you go to when you want to ask for a raise or start a new business. You're looking for people with experience in specific areas that you want to improve. If I want to improve my fitness journey, for instance, I have somebody I would go to. If I want to make sure that I'm learning to balance better between my husband, my children, my work, all of these things, I look to somebody who's done it before in a way that I admire. And so finding a group and a circle of people that you can go to. I learned this at a sales event. I went for sales training and they talked about, draw a table and then think about who would sit at your advisory board table. Who are the people you go to? And I believe I have men and women that have advised me very well throughout my life, but I believe having a sort of like board of directors of women that can help you get to the next level is just really unbelievable. And another thing you said about the different perspectives, having so many women and having passion for that, and using it in my own life. One of the reasons I wrote the book was that I feel that many books are prescriptive with like, okay, here's what you need to do, lean in, right? Or you need to relax or whatever it is. But different people have different needs at different times. And so I wrote the book almost as your own fab pab, right? This is all different women giving all different perspectives, and only some of which will resonate with you. And that's okay, because we're not a monolith, right? We have different experiences. And so it's sort of, the book itself is sort of a fab pab in its own way.
Awesome. So another endorsement why everyone needs to, while they're listening to this, go on and buy a copy of Work It. So you can have your own fab pab and in the voice of Carrie Kerpen and her team. I love the idea of the personal advisory board. In my book on job search, I call it a super team, where it's like you want to have the person who you go to when you're really low and you need to be talked up, or when you need the hug. And then you need the person who's going to not sugarcoat what you absolutely need to hear. Yeah. And then you need the person to give you the negotiating advice or the strategic advice on, whether it's your job search or, there's so many different ways to look at it. But, this process of life is not something to try and make it on your own, but learn from others who are great at some of these other areas.
Yep. When you're together, you go farther, faster. We always say that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier when we were talking about some of the struggles that women have, especially, is, we have so much on our plate. And with the challenges associated with the pandemic, I know this is hitting many of us hard. One way to combat this is to say no more often. So how does this show up for you?
Well, I always had a really big problem saying no. Always, my entire life, I said yes to everything. I am a consummate people pleaser. And I think that I had to learn the practice over time. So as I wrote the book, I sought out the advice of many women who set boundaries in a way that I felt I needed to do. But I never really was able to do it until the pandemic. When the calendar was empty for the first time ever, I felt that I had a chance to rebuild it in a way that I wanted. And even now, so I started saying no to a lot, and especially even certain types of business I didn't think I wanted to take anymore, and it was so freeing. Like, it's a muscle. No is a muscle. And if you practice saying no, thank you, or this won't work for me, or I have to prioritize other things, or, just flat out no. Every time you say it, you gain a little bit of power. And so when I was rebuilding my calendar, I really did it with intention and with what Charles Sandburg would say is ruthless prioritization. And that helped me really well. I've had to learn over time. I mean, I have some good examples in there of how I said no through the years, but I really think with the pandemic, like you mentioned, building back a life after life basically stopped, it gives you an opportunity to reset and say no. It's really very powerful.
And that's one of the areas where I would say that I've talked to so many women in the last 6 months to a year where, this pause has created the realization that moving forward, how can we be more intentional in our next steps and just not go back to an autopilot of, getting on the wheel and just doing whatever things come up next for them.
Yep. It's really hard. I will tell you that I feel in the past month, that pull back to exactly what it was, meaning the level of intensity, the level of work obsession, the level of all of it. And you have to be really, really intentional about your desire to build the life you want. So I think, not everybody had a blissful pandemic experience where they decided to live their life with intention and all of these things, but whatever you took away from it, I think a lot of people took a lot away from that time that you had to do nothing but think and be with your family. And so just remembering it, and nobody wants to live quite like that forever. I mean, this was a global crisis.
No, thank you.
Right. No. But what can we take from it? And can you put it on your mirror? Can you put it on your laptop, somewhere that you remember, like, what's the lesson that I learned and how will that impact my life going forward? I will tell you that for me, what I do now is I audit my calendar and I look at, okay, what's essential here? What's essential? What travel here is essential? What running around is essential? Can I pick my son up after school this week? If that's what I want to do or whatever it is, and really just being intentional with my time. That was my biggest takeaway, and commitment to health. I mean, I think for me, when I was locked in here, I was just literally had nothing to do but get on that darn Peloton. So I did, which was great. But now that I'm headed back into travel constantly, it's harder to do. And so I get back to prioritizing that health is really key.
Yeah, it's a great point to think back over the last year and a half. And like you said, for many of us, there were good things that came with it and bad things. And, there's a blend, but what are the silver linings that we can think about? And, that kind of reminds me about the whole concept of, seeing failures and challenges as blessings. And, that's one of the things that you talk about also is, how can you fail fantastically? And I read a quote the other day just about how failure is a stepping stone to your next success. And, obviously we all have our setbacks, but, how can we move forward and learn something out of it? Any other thoughts on failure or challenges?
Well, failure is essential to be able to grow. And you do not build resilience without experiencing some form of failure. And for me, I look to, when I think of failure, I think of Reshma Saujani, who is one of the people who I think is one of the most successful and inspiring women I know. She founded Girls Who Code, and she is currently doing the Moms Demand Time, like about giving back to mothers during the pandemic and this all of the wages lost, et cetera. She's fantastic. And she posts every Friday, Failure Friday, about something she failed with in that week. And this is somebody who is so successful. And to see that level of vulnerability. So it's not just failing and what we can learn from it, but it's being willing to share that failure with others that really makes it more okay for the rest of us to feel like we can. Like, I love that. Talk about a highlight reel. She's giving a highlight reel, not just of her fantastic successes, but of things she's failed on. And it makes her so much more real. So I would say, not just, yes, what you can learn from your failures, but don't be afraid to share them, because we all have them. And so we find strength in sharing with one another these challenges that we're having.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, again, on social media, so much of it is how can we share our best selves?
Yep.
And so finding the right ways to be vulnerable and demonstrate our leadership, it actually shows a whole new level of confidence to be able to do that.
That's exactly right. And vulnerability is really what helps you level up to the next level. I had a very hard time with being publicly vulnerable in any way. And I think.
Any thoughts to share on what helped you shift on that?
It's a great question. I think watching and learning from people. I did a lot of I follow a lot of really interesting people on social. Mel Robbins and her 5-second rule, and now her high five habit, is 2 books that she's written that I think, and she's very vulnerable on social about her own experiences. I think watching people like Gabby Bernstein, who's also, great author on social media, but talking about her own struggles with sobriety, people, if you serve as an example of vulnerability, it helps bring out the vulnerability within you, and people just think you are more true and more real if you're honest. And I think that to me resonated. I was always somebody who was seen as authentic. I'm not a fancy person at all. I'm never, not like super fancy. I'm seen as really authentic, but I don't know that I ever really was vulnerable until more recently. And it may have been from following some of these people, or it may have been from just deciding that I was going to be real at all costs with my team. Oh, the pandemic, when I filmed during the pandemic, I did a Facebook Live in a closed group every single day with my team. And they saw my whole house, kids running around like crazy, me totally undone, and like just being real. And it helped them get through. I would do a 15-minute chat with them, almost like to let them know everything is okay. We're still here. We're okay. And to share with them that I was scared too. I think that was actually, and it's following a lot of these great people, but it's also that during that experience, having to share with my team how scary that was. That definitely was part of it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And a great idea just in terms of how we can do some of these kinds of open, honest conversations with our own teams as well, to challenge ourselves to take that to the next level from a vulnerability standpoint, but also from a leadership standpoint about being present and being open and authentic. So, well, with that, Carrie, I think we will wrap things up. Just want to remind people they need to check out All the Social Ladies on podcast, as well as Work It, the Secrets for Success from the Boldest Women in Business. And I think that you will enjoy both of those and follow you on social media. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lauren. It was great. And I'm wishing you, massive success. You're doing great stuff. Love all of this. So
okay. Thank you,
for having
Carrie.
me on.